Take a family of 4 that's living in the suburbs, give them a cargo bike for the summer. How do you think their life will change? Hey everybody, I'm Tom and this is Shifter, a channel about urban cycling, bike commuting, and the ways we get around our cities. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing or becoming a Shifter member. There's a link in the description down below. So a few months ago, the company Xtracycle approached me with an idea for an experiment. What if we take one of their long tail cargo bikes and give it to a young family and see how their life would change? Would it change their transportation habits? Would they choose the bike over the minivan more often? Would they gain or lose anything in their life? Well, I said, I have no idea, but we're about to find out. Let's start with a little info about our guinea pigs. This is Chelsea and Matt. They are working parents with 2 kids. One's a preschooler and one is in elementary school. They're an active outdoorsy family, but they are not die-hard bike commuters. Matt works downtown, Chelsea works on the other side of the city. They occasionally ride bikes to work, but they mostly take their car. But they've never owned an electric cargo bike. This is their neighborhood. It's a mostly residential neighborhood that was built in the 1960s and is currently undergoing a bit of a demographic turnover. Original residents are aging out of this community and younger families are starting to move in. 51% of the neighborhood is made up of either single family or semi-detached homes. This neighborhood doesn't really seem to be gentrifying much at this point. The average household income is about 20% less than the city average. But it's got wide, leafy streets and broad bungalows that you might expect from a suburb that was built in the 1960s. 81% of the people who live in this neighborhood drive a car to work, which is actually higher than the city average of 77%. Only 1% ride a bike to work. Here they are picking up the bike for the first time. Now, as far as they know, they will have this bike for a couple of months as a loaner as part of this experiment. After they had the bike for just a couple of days, I met them for pizza in the park to hear their first impressions, where the bike was a big hit, not just with their family, but with all the neighborhood kids who kept asking for rides on it. It felt like we were off to a good start.
Well, yesterday was a good example. We were riding and we saw the pelicans on the river. We see people, we smell the flowers. I talked to my kids. This bike has been so good because I can just have conversations with them right behind me. And I love that I'm not driving a car. I love that it slows me down. You have to choose to do less in your day.
And here's what Chelsea said she was hoping to learn from this experiment.
When this opportunity came up for a cargo bike, we thought, yeah, our kids are getting older. It could be the right move for our family to take it more places more often. And I don't know, maybe see if it can replace using your car more often. We'll see.
I was also interested to hear some of her concerns about a bike like this.
So far, I think I've even learned with this one is your exposure to everything, to the elements is just like the sun the other day was just beating on us. So I'd say weather is a big factor. Safety is another factor. Our city is not great with bike infrastructure. You really see it, especially in our community.
So after that first week, Chelsea and her family were off to a good start. Now, we'll check in with them later, but I also want to tell you about this bike because I suspect you have questions. So this is the Xtracycle Swoop Class 3 with a Shimano EP6 a mid-drive pedal assist motor. And as you can see, this bike is built for hauling. It's classified as a long-tail bike, and that long tail can comfortably fit 2 kids, as you saw with Chelsea, but as the kids get older, you can also take that child seat out, and there's a nice pad here. So as the kids get older, you can keep riding them. And even if you remove these rails and keep that padded seat, you can bring adults, maybe on date night, you can take your partner out, or, if your friends make some poor life choices at the pub, you can probably get them home safely as well. Now, other than hauling kids, I think the primary function of a cargo bike in our daily lives is getting groceries. And so that's what I want to do today. And as I go, I want to answer some questions that you guys have about the bike. Now, don't think of this as a bike review. It's more just like giving you the information you need. I asked for some questions from the Shifter community, and I got some great ones. Carrying capacity in this one kind of depends on your setup. Now, this one's got this nice porter rack, which is attached to the frame and not the handlebars. So you can also buy these detachable sort of pannier style bags that connect to the rack back here pretty easily, and these are quite big as well. You've also got these really cool sort of saddle rail bags that fold up really tightly out of the way, but then if you want to expand them, it's a quick little switch here, and you can really expand them just by putting that in there, and you've got lots of carrying capacity here. And if you need even more carrying capacity, you can always do this. I had this old bin lying around. Look at that, fits right in there. the old bungee cord, and we've probably got a ton of capacity here. If you've never ridden a cargo bike, there's this impression that they're kind of big and unruly and difficult to maneuver. But once you get riding on them, I don't find that the case at all. I mean, this bike feels responsive and nimble and smooth. Even when there's some weight in the back, once you get pedaling, it just feels like a regular bike. And I'd say only if you have big, heavy, precious cargo in the back, like maybe your children, that you would maybe take a little care around the corners. But other than that, it feels great. I took this on the Critical Mass ride a couple weeks ago, and once I got moving and chatting with people, it was just a lot of fun. It feels just like a regular bike. Now, how does it do on the moose test? Could I swerve to avoid a moose? I think so. How do you store this thing? Well, obviously it's a bit bigger than a regular bike, so you're going to need a bit more space. A secure garage or shed or something like that would be ideal. I do know some people who keep cargo bikes locked up on the street and covered with a motorcycle cover. Two questions down here. One is about this long chain. Is there any concerns with a longer chain that way? Chelsea said she's had no problems with this chain so far. I asked the folks at Xtracycle. They say long chains do not report higher failure or problem rates than shorter chains. Also, the location of this battery pack, somebody asked if it gets splashed a lot by the tires, and the answer is, yeah, it gets splashed. You can see it's got some splashes on there now, but Xtracycle says they've had no reported problems of the placement there, and it is an all-weather rated battery, so it's pretty protected on there. Getting it into like a bike rack can be a bit tricky, but this one is a bit more sleek and easy to maneuver while walking than some other cargo bikes. Yeah, I've been using two locks. Chelsea recommended using two locks. That's what she's been doing, a U-lock and this big chain lock. And hauling two heavy locks may seem like a pain, but on this bike or a cargo bike, it doesn't really matter because there's so much cargo space. I just throw it in the bags. I don't even think about it, and I barely even feel the weight also. And I asked Xtracycle this question, and they said probably not. They have heard about it happening, but most buses don't have racks that are long enough to take this bike. But Xtracycle does have other models that will fit. Now, I have not done this, but if you're talking about the rear tire, getting access to it would probably take a bit more work than a regular bike because there's fenders and a rack in the way, so you have to move that. So is it tougher? I don't know. Is it more time consuming? Probably. Oh, and cost? Well, I would say a long-tail cargo bike like this costs more than a regular electric bike, but less than an electric Bachfiets box bike. Does that help? So does it haul groceries? Absolutely. I actually didn't even need this bin. I could have fit everything in the bags. Okay, now back to Chelsea. She gave me a couple of updates through the summer as the family was using the bike. So they made a few modifications based on their use. One thing was they found their youngest was falling asleep on longer rides and they worried about her slipping out, and so they added this child seat so she was more securely strapped in, and that solved that problem. And they had some fun. They took this bike to the lake to go swimming. They rode it to the playground. Here they are loading up to go to the swimming pool. Yes, there was even room for the pool noodles. But then September hit, and I wanted to see how things might change as they got back to the routines of work and school. The first thing was pretty obvious. I mean, look at this. Somebody learned how to ride a two-wheeler over the summer, which was exciting for everyone in the family. Both kids still like riding on the bike, but you know, kids, once they learn how to ride a bike, they love that independence. Overall, Chelsea said she really loved having the bike for the summer.
Yeah, an awesome summer. Yeah. I'd say we choose it more often. The kids preferred it. If we can do anything, we would choose to bike versus walk, or definitely versus the car. That's kind of their first request, is if we can bike it.
One thing that surprised her was how much stuff that the bike carried, even when the kids were on it. That kind of unlocked more possibilities for using the bike.
Yep, so we had dropped my son off, then my friend of our friend said, oh, I've got some stuff for you to pick up. I said, I got my bike. Let's try and put it on there. Like, this thing can hold a lot. And we had my daughter holding one bag on the bench seat, two other bags tied onto the sidebar. I had one bag of shoes up in the front, and we took them home. It was amazing. And I thought, yeah, we can haul like 4 different bags on this thing.
Other challenges that she faced, she learned that on the really hot days, she worried about sun exposure for the kids. And so she was looking at adding a canopy to the back of the bike, which is totally a thing you can do. Also, Chelsea herself is pretty small, so she found the bike a bit big and cumbersome to park it in some places, but she was getting better at negotiating it the more she used it. So once they were back to their regular routines, how did they end up using the bike? Well, Chelsea said she would often ride the kids to school on the bike, drop them off, and then was able to carry on all the way to work herself. So she absolutely got more sort of practical commuting trips in. She was able to use the bike more often to go do short errands to the grocery store, to pick things up, and she was able to take the kids to places as well. But she was limited by the city in some ways. The distances between her work and the kids' activities and running some errands, it was pretty big, and there aren't often safe connected bike routes to get her there. Remember, she lives in a neighborhood where less than 1% of people ride their bikes to work.
I remember we were trying to get to soccer, and soccer started at 6. I get off at 4:30. By the time I pick up the kids, they have to eat dinner on the way to soccer. I mean, they just can't eat on the go that same way. So sometimes we're eating in the car on the way. So that piece made it tricky. And then also it's just a time thing, is you can't get there by 6. If I didn't work as far away, that would be a factor. Although having an electric bike helps because you take it more often. I'm more likely to take it to work. The distance makes a big difference, and where you have to get to on one end to the other is tricky.
One thing I asked her to think about too was the cost of the bike. After having this bike for a summer, could she justify the cost to herself or to friends who might ask her about it?
I think definitely worth it. I would encourage somebody to get it at this kind of 2 to 3 year period of time, because this is when they're probably going to use it the most. And then after that, yeah, you might use it for cargo. You might use it in different ways. Also look at, where do you live? Is it easily accessible to all the different areas you're going to be going? I was worried about theft in the beginning, and I think I really kind of learned that it is a big thing, and I don't think somebody's going to really necessarily go after that to take. So that wasn't as big of a concern as we went. Cost-wise, but I value biking, so I'm going to say, like, go for it. It's worth it for sure.
And I also asked her, if she was to look back, what would her lasting memory of this summer be?
Just being outside. Just being outside, having your kids with you, and just fresh air. That's the best. Doing errands is way more fun on a bike. It's just more fun. Everything's more fun on a bike. I think it's just time together with family. You realize that this time is short, so you got to just spend it with these guys and doing this kind of stuff, and it makes that part of the adventure.
And finally, I broke the news to Chelsea that Xtracycle was offering for her to keep the bike if she wanted it.
No. Really? Are you kidding? No way, really? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'd be thrilled. That'd be awesome. And the kids will be thrilled too. They've been talking about having to get rid of it, and they're just like, oh, we got to get rid of the bike soon. So this is crazy. Cool.
Oh, good.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
You'll make use of it. So there you go. There is the summer cargo bike experiment on this family. It had a pretty big impact on their lives, I think, in lots of different ways, in ways they didn't expect. I think they also revealed some limitations within their city and within the practicalities of things. But overall, Chelsea seemed really excited. She kept sending me text messages afterwards, thanking her for the opportunity and thanking Xtracycle for the bike. So I think she realized that the bike is a pretty positive impact on her life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.